I call him one of the most successful failure, because what I
That's nice.
learned from him was that trying is the major thing.
So hi Daksh, thank you so much for
And
joining me on my show. I'm starting a new format of show. It is called the Paperback Stories. You are a reader, I am a reader. We read lots of interesting things, and I thought एक ऐसा format लाते हैं सामने जहाँ पे whatever we are learning about books from books, we can share it with each other and also share it with the audience. So you are my first guest, and thank you so much for joining in today.
thank you so much for inviting me, Abdut, and good luck with this new format. And I'm sure your audience will learn a lot from this.
Yes. I hope. Thank you so much. You know, you are the first booktuber I met. I didn't even know this term booktuber. मेरे को पता नहीं था कि there's a community where people, talk about books. And you were the first person, and I remember being so inspired from you. I still recommend a lot of books which you have recommended me on my channel. So
Yeah,
thank you so
yeah,
much
yeah.
for that.
I think many of our followers don't know that we have already done a collab for Independence Day wala video.
Yeah.
And I think people should go and check it out. It's really, really good.
Yes.
Like acting skills from both of us and how we did it.
So talking about the format of this particular series, it's called Paperback Stories because I feel stories are what connects us all. From one of my favorite books called *Sapiens*, which you might be knowing, which you might have heard and
Hmm.
read. So
Hmm.
*Sapiens* में भी वो बोलते हैं कि stories is what connected us all. So at the crux of everything, there are stories. So इसलिए मैंने सोचा let's share stories with each other. So
Cool.
I know you like reading biographies. You have read a lot of good biographies. So any story which you want to share?
Yeah, I think you're very right, because we all are driven by stories. And in this episode, your first episode, I'll share 4 stories that drive me every day. Okay, that
Okay.
drive me to stay with my values, that drive me to take action. So I'll share those 4 stories. So first story which completely changed my life was, I'll share the book as well. Okay,
Uh,
How to Make a Spaceship. You have
okay.
read this as well.
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
you know the story, but I'll just tell you my point of
Yeah.
view. So
Yeah.
basically, if your audience doesn't remember it, a quick recap: it's a story about Peter Diamandis, and he is one of the biggest entrepreneurs in America. And he wanted to become an astronaut when he was a kid, and he went to university. And his parents wanted him to study medicine, and he wanted to study space. So he didn't give up on his dreams, and he did medicine and space side by side. He did a dual degree. I don't know how he managed to do
Oh,
it.
nice. Yeah.
Both fields are so tricky, and that was very inspiring. That was the start of my inspiration ki, one shouldn't give up on their dreams under parents pressure. And after that, it turns out that he can't become an astronaut because he had some problem with his eyesight. Now most of us, you and me, if I wasn't able to become a cricketer, if I had some physical disability, I would just skip to another field and I wouldn't think about it.
Mm.
But what he did was completely change my point of view, that he wanted to become an astronaut. He couldn't become an astronaut. Instead of changing the field, he started his own space university so that he can help other people become astronauts easier. It's so that their path becomes easier.
Mm.
And that was like, I never saw the world in that way. मेरे को ये लगता था कि जो तुम्हें करना है करो, and अगर वो नहीं हुआ, move on to another thing.
Mm.
But he stuck to that field. He started his own X Prize, which is solving major world problems today about hunger, about women's safety. And it all came out from his inspiration for space.
Mm.
And that was the point when I realized in my life that life is much more than just thinking about ourselves, thinking about our own material needs, कि पैसे कमाने हैं, घूमने जाना है, चीजें खरीदनी है. This story completely changed my perspective of life. What was your take? I'm curious to know about this book now.
I agree with all of the points you said, but in specific, I thought that he entered into a venture which was very secluded. Many people are scared to go into space and think about space because it's governed by NASA. Just by the name of NASA, you feel it's so like there's a very high distance that you have to cross and be that level to even be associated with NASA.
Yeah.
And उसको प्राइवेटाइज करना एंड लोगों के साथ मिलना, हिज ड्राइव टू बी अबाउट इट एंड उसका पैशन, वो मुझे सबसे ज्यादा स्ट्राइकिंग लगा कि वो करेज इज व्हाट आई टुक फ्रॉम इट. ही आल्सो हैड द करेज टू लुक अप टू दैट
Courage
ड्रीम.
to do it. Yeah, exactly.
Recently also 2 months back I read this book called Stillness is the Key
Hmm.
by Ryan Holiday again, and a significant part of that book mentioned Winston Churchill. that
Yeah,
how he had a
yeah,
routine, how he was being in his space. So I saw a movie and I also read about Winston Churchill. The movie is called The Darkest Hour.
the darkest. Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant movie. And उसका story ये था कि for readers who don't know, many of might you guys might be knowing, but the story was कि Britain was a war-torn zone and everybody resigned. The previous
Mm.
prime minister resigned, and he was chosen to become the prime minister. So the kind of courage it took to become the prime minister of a war-torn nation, usi that even the thought of that would shake anybody up. But this man was very calm about it, very composed. He knew what he wanted. तो मूवी में एक सीन है like before going to the House of Commons, before giving a speech, he is just वो अपना blazer पहन रहा है, he's buttoning up, and his wife comes and she's helping him, motivating him, and he tells her कि I am scared. What if it doesn't work out or something like that? And she says, you were born for this. Always remember that. I mean, the way he handled things, I don't know the consequences of it. I can't comment on that. But the way
Mm.
he handled things when things were not going right is something very, very motivating for me. जैसे एक scene है उसमें, there's one more very famous incident of Winston Churchill where before going to the House of Commons giving his famous speech, he was so conflicted because his war cabinet wanted him to have peace with Hitler, but he wanted to go on a war with Hitler. He was the
Mm.
only one. No, very few people were supporting him. So he didn't know how to go about it because everybody around him is telling to go to peace. So while he was going for that meeting, he stopped his car. वो अपने कार से उतरा. He went into the underground metro railway जहाँ पे सारा local British people travel through that local. So he went inside among the public, among the common public. They were shocked to see the prime minister among them. वो ट्रेन में चढ़ा. He was in the train and he was traveling with the train to go to Westminster, his
Mm.
offices, wherever. So in the train, he asked people, "What do you think we should do?"
So
And there
cool.
was a little girl. There was a little girl who says, "You should not make peace with Hitler because that would give out a message that we are weak. But we are not weak. We believe in you, Prime Minister." This
Damn.
was this was amazing, and he went and he gave his famous speech where he was like, "We are going to
Yeah.
fight Hitler."
Yeah, yeah. Before coming to England, I had a very different image of Winston Churchill. He's a very controversial figure
Right.
because, in India, like there were a huge famine which happened because of Winston Churchill and how he was
Hmm.
preserving
Right.
food for war times. But after coming here, see, what I feel is every leader has that good and bad side. It's up
Right.
to us that if we see just the bad side and if we want to ignore all the good they have done, then it's our loss because they are dead. They have done their
Right.
work. So it's
Right.
up to us if we want to just look at their bad side and ignore them, or we want to learn from their good side. And when I came here and I got to know, he is voted as the greatest Briton of all time. He's
Hmm.
the greatest British guy who was ever born in all time.
Hmm.
And I've seen so many World War documentaries, and that made me one of the biggest fan of Winston Churchill.
Hmm. Yeah.
Coming to politics, my next
Okay.
inspiration is a political leader as well,
Okay.
Barack Obama.
Oh man.
Okay. And I don't know if you've read his book, Dreams from My Father.
I have. It
You
was my
have?
earliest biography reads.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So again, this one is a big driver for me as well, as I've told you that I want to move back to India and
Mhm.
work on helping India develop, work on helping Indian people develop.
Mhm.
And this inspiration came from him actually. So basically, Peter Diamandis gave me that push that life is much bigger than thinking about yourself.
Mhm.
Then who should we think about? I started thinking about the British people here because I was living here in England and I started my own coding club and everything to help the British people here. But then lockdown happened. And in the lockdown, I read this book and it made me realize that how he spent all his life to help the underprivileged, especially the Black community, when he learned how badly they were treated and how the slave trades happened in America and everything. And because of that, they're still, and he left his very well paid job. Like he was a very, very, in a very comfortable position in his life. And he left that job to become a simple organizer, organizing
Mhm.
people for, activist kind of thing. And he
Mhm.
even slept on park benches.
Mhm.
Imagine the courage you need to leave your full-time job to work for other people and sleep on park benches to help organize rallies, to help organize, those protests. And he, like, one of the thing which really shook me was he organized a very big rally in which he invited a local MP, and it was supposed to be a groundbreaking meeting. And things should have supposed to change for that area. But when the MP came, some people in the group misbehaved, and the MP left without doing anything. He was very mad and he left. And it was like one of the biggest failure. Anyone in Obama's place would have given up. That's it, this is not for me. But he didn't. He was like, this is just my start. And he went to study law so that he understands the whole American system. And he came back to all this. And he ended up becoming the first Black president of America. And that pushed me that, can I do something for my brown community? Can I do something for my Indian community? One reason was that, I belong to the Indian community. Second reason was Indian community. India is one of the highest populated place on the planet. So a lot of responsibility when it comes to pollution, when it comes to consumerism, all those demands will be navigated by our country. How much does the people in our country consume? How much do they pollute the planet? So basically now we would be at the steering wheel of the planet kind of thing, because of our population, because of our consumer demand.
Obama is truly, truly, truly motivational. I'm yet to read The Promised Land. The size.
I have it as well.
Size makes me anxious, but someday. I have another story. It's about a writer, and it's about, let's talk about the quantity of work, like how people believe in producing more quantity rather than the quality of work. So this guy was actually born in Russia, and he migrated to United States while he was 3 or 4, and his father opened a candy shop in the United States, and in that candy shop they used to sell magazines. So he started looking at those magazines. He taught himself how to read, and he loved reading and writing very much, but he was very confined to himself, like small little place, apna chota sa room hai, chota sa apna apna hai. He was teaching himself, and बहुत early America की बात है ये. And soon after he graduated very early, like उसके students, teachers ने भी उसे जल्दी push किया from the school because he was very smart and stuff. And he graduated with a degree in chemistry, if I'm not wrong, from Columbia. And he got a small job. He was living life very happily and stuff. Like he was very, very content with his life. But he was born to do a lot of great things. So what happened was, he was fascinated about science fiction. He started reading about things which were way beyond what things were going on at that time. There was no term called robot at that time. Okay, nobody knew what a robot meant. Was the earliest writers who has coined the term robot, and he wrote science fiction. He is known as the big three of science fiction. He wrote so much. He was fascinated, and his works were way ahead of its time. In fact, one of his books, 1960s, I don't know, won a Hugo Award, and it actually was the winner over Lord of the Rings. Like Lord of the Rings was also a contender. The Hugo Award is for the fantasy novel. It won over Lord of the Rings. The book was Foundation, and the writer was Isaac Asimov.
Oh,
yes.
Oh my God, that guy!
Amazing. And I read about his work.
Foundation series, right?
I read the first part only. I want to read. I have the books, but I want to read. You recommended, I remember.
Oh my
I was so fascinated with this story. He has written more than 500 books. 500 is the number. I was reading I, Robot, his collection of short stories. So in that, the first story is called Eddie. So it's about a robot. It was the first time anybody has talked about a robot getting feelings. Now it feels very ubiquitous because we have seen this in movies and stuff. But he was the first one to think about it when there was not even internet, nahi tha, computer nahi tha, and this guy was thinking about robots and building such a huge world around robots. So which fascinated me a lot. And then I found out he has written over 500 books. And it's not just science fiction. It's about history. It's about Greek mythology. It's about Romans. He has also made an encyclopedia where he has studied 1,500 scientists and their works. And he has written something about that. Even if you write 10 pages of every scientist, it's like 15,000 pages. Everything, Star Wars, Stanley Kubrick, everything. He impacted everything.
Hmm.
So I find it
So
really
this is what,
fascinating.
this is what I feel, when we were in school, our education system teaches us that, science people are the smartest ones,
Mm-hmm.
and commerce are, good people, and arts people are the dumbest one. You need to stay away from the arts people. But when you come to the real world, you realize that this world is driven by artists.
True.
Like
Very
science
true.
is driven by science people wouldn't have got the idea of iPhone or anything like that unless they would have seen it in science fiction movies.
True.
you
True.
know and
Very
the
true.
world works in a completely different way from what we are taught in schools. Like, the world is driven by artists and we need more artists. This brings to another good personality. He
Okay.
is similar to Asimov.
Mm.
Asimov was, he wrote so many things. This guy is called, he's the, how should I say it, he's one of the best entrepreneurs
Mm.
that has been born in UK.
Okay.
And he doesn't have $1 billion company, $2 billion company. He has multiple 20 to $30 billion companies. Richard
Okay.
Branson.
Richard Branson. What a guy.
Yeah. And the thing from his story which struck me was like, from his childhood, he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't scared to take action. He never,
Mm-hmm.
when we are kids, like, we have that raw authenticity that whatever we want to do, we just go and do it. We don't think about what will people say, what will people think.
Mm-hmm.
And once we change into teenage, that thing goes away somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Become conscious around our world, we stop taking those big actions. But with Richard Branson, that thing never left him. Even till this day, he's like, I think 75 years old. That thing has never left him. Like, in
That's
his
amazing.
teenage, he started he started messaging big rock bands to interview them for his college magazine. And they were so surprised that a school kid was approaching them that they said yes, because no one did this. And
Mm.
similarly, when it came to his businesses, for example, Virgin Airlines, like, he was waiting for, I think he was waiting for his flight, and the flight was very delayed. And one of the waiting passengers told him that, Richard, why don't you start an airline business? And he did it. He
Oh.
called Airbus and he was like, do you have a spare aircraft? Even an old aircraft will work. And he just borrowed a spare aircraft from them. And he just started his airlines with one airplane. That's it. And he somehow got the permissions which he wanted, and he started his airline business with just one airplane, because one of the passengers told him, why don't you start it? Because British Airways is very bad with this service and everything. And this guy has always focused on transforming. Like, people think of innovative ideas, building new things. He thinks about changing old industries
Mm.
and modernizing them, whether it's gym, resorts, the yacht industry, the trains in UK. He completely transformed it. He, like,
Mm.
completely changed the level of trains, or how trains should be. And
Mm.
similarly with airlines, like Virgin Airlines, everything, he transformed the old businesses. He is very customer centric. And
Mm.
the biggest thing which I have learned from, and which drives me as well in
Mm.
my life, is, if I think the idea is good, I just take action. I don't let myself get into that
Mm.
thinking loop. You
Yeah.
try to do it, what will people think, what will this happen? And that is how I've been able to start YouTube, Instagram, podcast, everything. Because as soon as I got the idea, I pushed myself to do it.
Mm.
People only dream of having their own boat houses and living in countryside or anything. This guy literally bought a boat in England, in
Uh,
a canal, and he lived there inside a small boat.
Interesting. He
So
has his eyes on space now.
yeah, on space, Virgin Galactic, like,
Galactic.
yeah, so cool. Like, he wanted to go to space. He wanted started a space company, and he went to space, and now he's starting space tourism. Yeah,
Oh,
imagine one day having lunch with them, man.
oh my God. I would give anything for that lunch.
Yeah, yeah, that'll
Just
be
to
so
be
cool.
in the same room as these people.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
God.
that'll be so cool. Like, I remember, this reminds me of the story of Indian cricket team. I don't know if I've told you. So basically, I had read Richard Branson's book and everything. So
Mm.
this taking action was in my mind. And Indian cricket team was in Birmingham, and they were supposed to have a match with Pakistan. And I was sleeping in bed at night, and I was like, I should go and at least wave the team goodbye when
Mm-hmm.
they leave the team hotel. And I went there and the team was still sleeping. I asked the guard, where's the team? They're like, they're still sleeping. So now I could have moved back and went back to my house and slept. If they're sleeping, let them sleep. But I don't know what happened. And I said, can I go in? And the guard said, yeah, if you buy breakfast, you can. And that was the best 20 pounds I spent in my life. I sat and had breakfast. And after an hour, the whole Indian cricket team started coming into the same area to have breakfast. And instead of just waving goodbye, I got to meet each and everyone personally. I shook hands with them, like Rohit Sharma sitting there, Rahane sitting there, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, Virat Kohli. I was in the middle of all of it, and it had such a different vibe, And this is what, this is what these small incidences makes you realize that we miss so many opportunities because we overthink. If we just go and take actions and start saying yes to things, we can live some of the best days of our lives. And this is what Richard Branson does every day of his life.
I just thought about how surreal it would be to, meet these people. I just remembered I saw a post 2 days back on LinkedIn. So the title was "This tweet changed our lives," something like that. So Elon Musk hosts this hyperloop competition, right, where many teams, many engineering teams from all over the world, they design their own pods and present it. And so one of the finals was going on in LA, I think 2 years back, 2 or 3 years back. And there was some team from some remote part of the country where they had come, they were in the finals, and they had some testing left. And they wanted to get that done so that they could enter the final round. But there was something missing, so they wanted an extension about it. And they were very anxious. The whole team was scared because they spent so much money and everyone's here, and it was the final round. So they just tweeted that Elon Musk, hey, please, can you extend the deadline or something like that? Okay, and the tweet got lost. But the next day, while they were on the 10th, the day of the event, somebody told them there's a video on LinkedIn. I'll send you that video. Somebody said, Elon Musk is coming. Elon Musk is coming. Elon Musk came and he was like, "Who's that team?" I saw that tweet. So he came them. He shook hands with everybody. Elon Musk, and he told them what's the issue. So they were like, this is the issue. Very technical. And Elon is like, okay. So he calls up the guy who's the head of the event. He's like, extend the event by a day. And they didn't win that competition, but still it motivated them so much that guy, after coming out, he started his own company regarding that, and now he's working as a full-time CEO of that new venture that he has created, just because of a tweet. And Elon Musk actually came and shook hands with them, which was like, what a moment.
So cool, man. So cool.
Yeah. Let's talk about space only. Like it's a small story I read. It's a very small story. It's a fun kind of a story. And so when Neil Armstrong first landed on the moon, when he set up toes after he was done the expedition and all, when he said his dialogue and stuff, when he came back into the pod, the first thing he mentioned was, "Enjoy, Mr. Gorsky." Do you know this story?
No.
Okay, so he said this, "Enjoy, Mr. Gorsky." And after he came back, the media started speculating, like, who is Mr. Gorsky? What is Mr. Gorsky? Like, is this a cryptic? What is it? Who is it? They started everything. Nobody found out who that man is or what that is. And Neil Armstrong never told the public. He was asked many times in the public in interviews that who is Mr. Gorsky? He never told. But not recently, like many years back, one day he came onto the interview. He was again asked this question, that who was Mr. Gorsky? And he said that, okay, now that Mr. Gorsky has passed away, I can talk about this story, but I didn't want to talk about this before. So the story goes like, when he was a kid, when Neil Armstrong was a little kid, he was playing in his neighborhood, and during the night time, and he heard his neighbors fighting. So there was a elderly couple, and they were fighting. And the elderly guy, he says to his wife that, "I want to go to a party." And the wife says, "You want to go to a party at this time? I will only allow that if the kid next door steps his foot on the moon."
Damn.
And he was Mr. Gorsky, the elderly man. Okay. And when he actually did that, the first thing he exclaimed was, "Enjoy, Mr. Gorsky."
Okay, damn. So cool, man. So
we
cool.
live in a beautiful time.
Yeah, so cool. But yeah, this brings to my last story. Another greatest personality of our time, one of my favorite, Gandhi ji. And one of the biggest things I learned from him was sticking to our values. Okay, so it's a very, very different thing from space. But if we come back to politics and the Indian freedom movement, there was a time when there were a lot of a civil war situation in Noakhali ke dange. They were, Bengal side mein. And so basically something happened where Muslims attacked the Hindus. Where Muslims attacked the Hindus, and now Hindus were attacking back to the Muslims. And it was all getting very messy. So Gandhiji went to this village and he stayed with the Muslim families there. And he knew, since he is there in that village, none of the Hindus will come and trouble the Muslims. And he always, his always one of the biggest motto was to, before independence, like he didn't, yes, he wanted India to be independent, but before independence, he knew the most important part for India was to unite. India, Hindus and Muslims united, and all the castes in Hindus should get united. And how he stick to that motive. Okay, so he was in that village, small village, where he knew that he's protecting these Muslim people from Hindus coming and slaughtering them. And because of his principles that he wanted India united, he wanted peace. And there was Indian constitution being written in Delhi, and Jawaharlal Nehru ji was there, all major leaders were there, and they were begging Gandhiji that we will send someone else, we will send some other political leader, we will make sure nothing happens to the Muslims, please come and help us with the constitution. And that would have been such a big thing, helping with the constitution would have made him very, that he helped with the constitution and everything. That would have been the very popular thing at that time, that he did a very important job. But he stuck to it. He was like, no, you guys handle it, it's your job, you are the politicians, you handle it. I'm here to protect the Muslims, and my motive is to unite India. And he stood by his word, and he stayed in that village while the constitution and everything was being written. And I call him one of the most successful failure, because what I learned from him was that trying is the major thing. He spent all his life trying to unite India. Even today, India is not united. But his ideas survive. Ideas of unity survive. And they somehow, they do chemical locha, and we have movies like Lagero Munna Bhai. Okay. But he taught me that achieving the results is not important, but trying is more important. Again, as we discussed previously, every leader has their own pros and cons. Now, there will be a lot of Gandhi criticizers watching this video. Yes, he might have had some cons, and he might have had some sides which we don't agree with, but he did have good qualities as well. He did his work, he's dead. Now it's up to you to ignore everything he did, or to take the good parts and learn from them. He has inspired so many leaders, Martin Luther King, Barack Obama, like so many political leaders with peaceful protest. He has inspired so many. Albert Einstein's quote about him? No? So I think it's in this book itself. Let me see. Albert Einstein said that in future, no one would believe that a man like him walked on this planet in flesh. And that is coming from Albert Einstein, one of the most genius mind of that time.
Our professor, when I was studying in Kota, when I was studying for engineering, my professor used to say that they didn't believe in God or a higher power or any eternal being, but they believe that there is something out there, and which sends these people to Earth to tell Earth a little bit about them, because it's not humanly possible for people like Newton, Einstein, these great people to just contemplate. And because Einstein, you mentioned Einstein, right? He was sitting in his own room without looking at the world. He gave such theories which are true. Scientists have proved that. How is it humanly possible for anybody to comprehend like that? It's very spiritual if you think about it. Highly spiritual.
Same thing with that. I think you've seen that Indian mathematician movie, right? Ramanujan.
Yes. Same. What level of It's
Yeah.
completely spiritual. It's not humanly. It's superhuman what they did.
And recently a documentary came out. I don't know if I told you, Close Encounter with the Fifth Kind.
No, no,
No, I haven't told you.
no.
So, oh my God, oh my God. I'll tell you, okay?
Uh-huh.
So basically, that movie is about that there is a group which has started in America,
Mm-hmm.
and they have started group meditation sessions. Group
Okay.
meditation sessions to create collective consciousness to talk to the
Okay.
aliens.
Okay.
So basically, if you pick up any religious spiritual text, they tell you that we all are connected through
Mm-hmm.
consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
If we all are connected through consciousness, we can talk to each other through consciousness as well. And
Mm-hmm.
if you pick up old Indian mythologies, you will see Shiva used to talk through telepathy to his gurus. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so many gurus used to talk to their students through telepathy.
Mm-hmm.
And we completely saw that as bullshit, because we got into materialism and everything. We saw that it's not possible.
Right.
And but now, and the proof is that whenever a group like this is formed, wherever they go and they try to talk, there is UFO sighting in that area at that time
Oh.
itself. And they have even captured pictures of aliens. They have even captured pictures of aliens. You remember?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. Heard
पूजा
it.
करो बैठ के शिव, राम जी डिड दैट जब उन्हें
Mm-hmm.
पुल बनाना था, बैठ के
Mm-hmm.
उन्होंने पूजा करी थी टू प्लीज अ गॉड सो दैट गॉड कम्स आउट एंड हेल्प्स हिम.
Mm-hmm.
So, are we going back in time? Are we going back through meditation and talking to people who our ancestors knew as gods, and now we know them as aliens, who are coming here whenever we get into a super conscious state, like
Mm-hmm.
Einstein, like Ramanujam,
Yeah.
who are coming and feeding ideas and helping us out. Like, even for you,
Right.
whenever you think of your YouTube video, you need to go into that super conscious state
Yeah.
where suddenly, out of nowhere,
It
these things
just
are
pops
coming
up.
into your mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's this whole space is very magical, I feel. This is magic, right? People think magic is that stereotypical
Yeah,
supernatural thing, but what we do, like what ideas, what these people have done, what Elon Musk has done, what many Indian leaders have done is magic.
magic. And if you think about it, if this becomes popular, the idea of talking to each other through consciousness, the idea of traveling through consciousness,
Mm,
and there are yogis who become so meditative that they can survive just on water and air.
yeah.
So, why do we need consumerism? We need consumerism to travel, to talk to each other, to feed ourselves. But if we
Mm,
can sit and meditate, we can travel through meditation, we can talk to each other
mm,
through meditation, we can feed ourselves with food and water. Sorry, air and water, and
fair
survive.
matter. Yeah,
All concept of materialism gone.
gone away. Like I remember even you have read autobiography of a yogi.
Yeah.
It hits you like you don't want to believe it, but you also want to believe it. It's
Yeah.
a very different space, that
Yeah.
book.
It's like we are going in circle. What our ancestors saw
Mm,
became magic for us. And now we are rediscovering all those things, and we are
yeah.
naming those things as consciousness, as aliens, as
Mm,
different things. Really
definitely
good.
was.
But yeah, good talk, man. Good
Nice.
talk.
Yeah, this was a amazing. We I like the segues. We covered a lot of topics and hopefully
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
very interesting
Very
stories.
interesting. Very interesting. And a big job
Yeah.
for you to edit.
Yeah. No, it's all right. Oh, thank you so much. Let's wrap it up here. Thank you so
No
so much
problem.
for joining.